I mentioned our top 10 point guards that we've gone through. We went through our top 10 shooting guards last show. Now we are going to go through our top 10 small forwards in the NBA. Now, this is a much more difficult list to come up with because you have your top 5 guys, which obviously we'll get to, and then it just drops off. It is a huge drop off between the top 5 and the bottom 5. So if you have a comment about who should be in the top 10, let me hear it because this whole bottom 5 of this list is totally up in the air. So let's go right now to number 10 on our list of the top 10 small forwards heading into next season. And at number 10, I have Brandon Ingram. Now, Brandon Ingram, he had a great year last year. He did. He took a big step forward. His scoring took a big step forward. His rebounding, his playmaking, his passing ability. He has developed naturally like you want to see any NBA player do from season 1 to season 2. 16.1 points per game for a guy in the NBA of his length, his size, and his age is quite good. And I think with him, we just don't know what his ceiling is. But I think for Ingram, it works in his favor. I mean, we had a comp for him, or a lot of people said that Brandon Ingram was going to be the next Kevin Durant. I certainly don't think that's true, but we don't know what Brandon Ingram's ceiling is. We have no idea how good this kid could actually get. So with LeBron coming in, I think it'll help out his development a lot. I mean, we're already getting some weird Scottie Pippen remarks about Brandon Ingram. But for now, I think keeping him at number 10 is a good spot because I think he could jump up a couple of places as the season goes on. So we'll start at number 10 with Brandon Ingram. Let's go to number 9, one of the best defensive forwards in the NBA. So good, in fact, that he made an all-NBA defensive team this year. It is Robert Covington. I'm a big Robert Covington guy. This might be more of a personal one than other ones. I know that some people will argue, he's very inconsistent. His points per game isn't that great, but his defense is stellar. I mean, he's one of the best wing defenders in all of basketball. To me, he's a young Trevor Ariza. He's Trevor Ariza from about 5 or 6 years ago. This dude has a lot of potential left. He's still relatively young. He's on the perfect team to accent his skills and also to cover up a lot of his weaknesses. He's a very good player, had a very good season last year on a good deal as well. Only $10.5 million a year on that Covington contract going forward. I'm a fan of his. I think he's going to get better as the years go on. It's just he's got to get some more consistent shooting. His three-point shooting was way too inconsistent last year. It wasn't to the level that the 76ers needed him to be. So I think Covington will be here at number 9. I think by the end of the year, this is where he's going to stay. I don't think he's ever going to jump into the top 5. I don't think he's ever going to jump into the top 7. I think number 9 for him right now is a good spot. All right. Let's go to number 8 on my list for the top 10 small forwards in the NBA. And at number 8, it's a guy who I'm not overly high on. I've always been a little bit more iffy on him than a lot of other people that cover the NBA, and it's Otto Porter Jr. Now, a great two-way player. A very good two-way player. Very good on the defensive side of the ball. Guy's got crazy amounts of length. He's a good defender, can defend 3 positions, obviously the 2, the 3, and the 4. But I'm not crazy about his offensive game. It really hasn't developed the way I wanted it to. I think he take what Robert Covington does and kind of do it a little bit better. And that's what Otto Porter is to me. But also add about $15 million a year of salary. I think Otto Porter is still on one of the worst deals in the entire NBA. $26 million a year for Otto Porter is just insane. That is an insane amount of money for a guy who, again, has never averaged 15 points per game in the NBA. And if you look at him in the playoffs, he wasn't that great either. So I only have him at number 8. I still think he has room to grow, but I feel like we've already hit what Otto Porter's ceiling is. And especially on this team with John Wall and Bradley Beal and Dwight Howard. I think we've seen where his ceiling is as a player. And I'm just not crazy about what Otto Porter brings to the table as a superstar player, especially paying him a max contract on that team. So Otto Porter coming in at number 8 on my list for the top 10 small forwards for this season. Let's go to number 7, my great love affair, ladies and gentlemen. You know how much I love him, and I had to put him on this list. It is Joe Ingles. I'm just going to let that simmer. I love Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles is one of the most underrated players in the entire NBA. Do not get caught up in the 11.5 points per game. Do not get caught up in the base statistics. One of the best advanced analytics guys in the entire NBA. An absolute darling of the advanced numbers that we have today. Defensive rating, top 20 in the NBA. offensive rating, top 20 in the NBA, one of the best three-point shooters that we have in the game today, one of the best playmakers that we have at the position today as well, on a cheap contract of only $13 million a year. He's on the perfect team with the Utah Jazz. Again, similar to Robert Covington, that accents his skills and covers up his weaknesses. But again, Joe Ingles does not have many weaknesses as a player. He's a very complete basketball player. He brings a lot of different skills to the table. He is one of my favorite guys to watch in the NBA. He was a huge reason why the Jazz were so good last year. He's an elite wing player, both on offense and on defense. Again, very similar to what Otto Porter does, just better. I mean, I'll put it this way. If the Wizards got out of Otto Porter what the Jazz are able to get out of Joe Ingles, the Wizards would have been a top 4 seed in the East for the past 3 years. No questions asked. Joe Ingles has been one of the most underrated players in basketball. It is a crime how underrated this guy is. I think with the Jazz kind of entering the spotlight this year with their team being so good and with Mitchell kind of being one of the superstars of the NBA, I think a lot more people are going to see how good Joe Ingles has been over the past couple years and how good he will be going forward. Let's go to number 6 on my list. I don't care. You can throw all the hate at me that you want. Blah, blah, blah. Position this, position that. Jayson Tatum is my number 6 small forward heading into this season. He is the best young forward in the NBA, not named Giannis. This dude should dominate the Eastern Conference for the next decade if he ends up staying there for that long. Jayson Tatum is on the verge of being the next NBA superstar. Not many people, rookies in general, had the playoffs that he had last year. He was electric. He won the Celtics a series. I mean, he almost won them the series against the Cleveland Cavs. He was fantastic in games 5, 6, and 7. Not to mention, he dunked on LeBron James, proceeded then to come down the next possession and hit a crazy 3 to keep the Celtics in the game. This dude is a cold-blooded killer. He has the blessing of Kobe Bryant. He has the blessing of every Celtics legend as well. They are just stunned by how good this kid is at such a young age. I think he's on the verge of being one of the next great NBA players. He has all the skills in the world. His offensive game for the age that he's at is unlike anything I have ever seen since Carmelo Anthony. I mean, look, as a shooter at least. I mean, when Melo came out, he was obviously a different offensive player than LeBron James was. LeBron wasn't the shooter that Melo was, but Melo wasn't the finisher that LeBron was. Tatum is both. Tatum is an amazing finisher around the rim and probably has the best jump shot of any player under the age of 22 right now in the NBA. It is incredible what Jayson Tatum showed on the offensive side of the ball last season. I think going into next year, you add Gordon Hayward, you add Kyrie Irving, Jayson Tatum is going to have a lot of open space to operate. He's going to have a crazy season. But let me know in the comment section if you think Jayson Tatum will be an all-star this season. I do. I think he's going to make the bench this year for the Eastern Conference All-Stars. Simply because also, I mean, who else is going to make it over him? It's not like the East is stacked with talent at the forward position right now. There's only about 3 or 4 guys at that position that can really, make the leap into superstardom. So I think Jayson Tatum right now, coming in at number 6 on my list, is going to be one of the best players in basketball in the next couple of years. All right, let's go to number 5 on my list. I have always been lower on him than a lot of other people have, and I maintain that concept. Paul George coming in at number 5 for our top 10 small forwards. I've always been lower on him simply because what team do you need to surround Paul George with in order to win? I mean, you can make an argument that he's already had the perfect team around him to win, and they couldn't. I mean, that Pacers team with, peak Roy Hibbert and Lance Stevenson and Jeff Teague and David West, that was a great team for Paul George, and they still couldn't win. Now he goes to the Thunder. He's got Russell Westbrook. They bring in Melo, Steven Adams, another great place for Paul George to succeed, and he has a good season, but it wasn't the elite season that we've seen from Paul George in the past. Now, it cannot be forgotten that Paul George, before Andre Roberson went down last year, I know it's kind of weird to say, Paul George was in line to be the defensive player of the year. I mean, he was having one of the best defensive seasons of any wing player in NBA history, and then Andre Roberson went down, and the entire on-court defense of the Thunder just completely crumbled into nothing. So I think Paul George going into this year, Roberson's coming back, the Melo's gone, so they'll have a better player at the 4 that can accent Paul George's skills a little bit better. But I I'm not the highest on Paul George. I just don't know what team you need to surround him with in order to actually put up a championship level roster. At this point, I wonder, can we start asking the question, can you win a title with Paul George as your second best player? I think the answer is no at this point, and that's why I have him at number 5 on my list. Let's go to number 4, a guy who we don't even know what his potential still is. The dude is a combination of Hakeem Olajuwon with Magic Johnson. It's Giannis, baby. Giannis coming in at number 4. The best young forward, the best young player in the NBA today, the number 1 finisher at his position right now. And yes, he is a better finisher than LeBron James. At least he was last year. No one had a better field goal percentage around 5 feet than Giannis did. The dude shot 75% 5 feet away from the basket or less. 75%. Number 1 in the NBA by a significant margin. No one finishes like Giannis does with the length and the dunking ability, with how incredible he can use those, tree-like arms to get those layups around a lot of the best rim protectors in the NBA is really unlike anything we've seen from the forward position in a long time. Not a lot of people have ever had Giannis's length, let alone the ball handling that he has along with his defensive ability. Going into next year, I know that Kawhi is in the East now, but Giannis might just be the best player in the Eastern Conference going into next season. And I say that with us not knowing if Kawhi is going to be 100% going into next year. So Giannis coming in at number 4 on our list. Let's go to number 3. I just mentioned him. It is Kawhi Leonard, because when Kawhi is healthy and Kawhi is focused, he's the 3rd best player in the NBA. He just is. He's the 3rd best player in the sport I think by a considerable margin. I mean, you can go back to the 2016-2017 season and go look at his numbers compared to Kevin Durant. I mean, he was better. He had a better season than Kevin Durant did back in 2016-2017. And at that point, Kawhi was the 3rd best player in basketball. Then he had the weird year last year, and now we have no idea what Kawhi Leonard is going to bring to the table. So personally, I think Kawhi is going to have a great year. I think he's going to help lead the Raptors to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think he's got to prove to the rest of the NBA that he's healthy and he's here to stay. Because as of right now, what's going on with this Raptors team just really isn't, what's going on with Kawhi, it just isn't acceptable to go through what he did last offseason and this offseason and now go through the issues of wanting a max contract. Like, that's just not going to happen in 2019 if he doesn't perform this year. So I think Kawhi is going to have a great year, coming in number 3 on my list for the top 10 small forwards in the NBA. But let me know, who is the best player in the Eastern Conference? Give me a heart for Giannis. Give me a like for Kawhi. It's so difficult. I'm going to throw up a heart because we still aren't sure what Kawhi is going to be. And again, he still could come back and not be 100%. But Giannis at 100% with another season of development under his belt, plus bringing in Mike Budenholzer, I think by the end of the year, Giannis will be the best player in the Eastern Conference and will be one of the 5 finalists, or, I know there's 3 finalists, but I think he'll be one of the last 5 guys for the MVP trophy. All right, let's go to our number 2 player, because there's really only 2 players that could fill up the number 1 and number 2 for our best small forwards in the NBA. And number 2, it's Kevin Durant. And I feel that some people have tried to convince me and other NBA people that Kevin Durant is better than LeBron James. Now, Durant is a better pure scorer than LeBron. He's a better pure shooter than LeBron James. But I would if you're asking me to choose a team, I would never choose Kevin Durant over LeBron James. LeBron is better than Kevin Durant. I know that Durant's teams have beaten LeBron's teams the past 2 years. I know that Kevin Durant, at least in last year's finals, outplayed LeBron. I understand that. But Kevin Durant still does not have the complete overall playmaking package that someone like LeBron James does. He doesn't have the on-court effect that LeBron does either. I mean, you take Kevin Durant off the court, you can still survive as an NBA team. You take LeBron James off the court, and as we saw with the Cavs, you can't really survive at all. So I still have LeBron James over Durant. I understand that he's been in the last 2 finals, and he is a little bit younger, but I can't do it. I can't say that Kevin Durant is better than LeBron James. It's just not there yet. And for Kevin Durant also, who knows where he's going to be after this season. He can end up joining LeBron in LA with the Lakers. So we have Kevin Durant at number 2. And of course, at number 1, it's LeBron, right? Like it's obviously LeBron. He's the best player in the NBA. It's LeBron James. LeBron James. Like there's no other necessary description for why LeBron James is the number 1 small forward in the NBA. He's been the best small forward in the NBA, for the past decade at least. He's probably the best small forward in the history of the NBA. I love Larry Bird, but I think at this point you can kind of give it to LeBron, seeing as LeBron has already played longer than Larry Bird. And it's LeBron. He's the number 1 player in the NBA, so obviously he's the number 1 player at his position. But let me know what you guys think. Will Kevin Durant ever dethrone LeBron? Now, I say that as being the number 1 player in the NBA, because I think right now it's pretty unanimous that LeBron is number 1 and Kevin Durant is number 2, despite Kevin Durant constantly complaining about hating being the number 2 player in just about everything. So I don't think Durant will ever dethrone LeBron. I don't think there's ever a time that Durant will be the best player in the NBA while peak LeBron is around. Now, LeBron could be 38 years old, and then Durant is finally better because he's 4 years younger, but that doesn't really count. He's just old at that point. So I say no. I don't think Kevin Durant will ever be better than LeBron James. So let's go back through my top 10 small forwards for this season. Tatum, Ingles, Otto Porter, Robert Covington, and Brandon Ingram hold down 6 through 10. And then 1 through 5, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis, and then Paul George coming in at number 5. So we are going to reveal something very special and near and dear to my heart. We're calling this the board. It's the best lineup in the NBA, made up of all of our top 10 segments. So at point guard, we have Steph Curry. At shooting guard, we have James Harden. And now we add LeBron James at the small forward position to really make things go. So LeBron coming in as the best small forward for us in the NBA.